Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Bio for the Competitive Life. I am your host, Charles Chapman, once again, coming to you today. We're going to talk some more NFL football, the NFL draft coming up tomorrow night. Today I want to talk about a little special. I got a little motivation for this video from a guy named Peter Schrager, who did his top 5 number 1 overall draft picks in the history of the NFL draft. So I thought I'd get out there and look at the history of the NFL draft and give you my top 5. And today, representing number 5 of the Philadelphia Eagles, Donovan McNabb, a great player, a guy that should have won number 1 overall in 1999 to the Cleveland Browns. But luckily for the Philadelphia Eagles and for Donovan McNabb, the Cleveland Browns were enamored with Tim Couch out of the University of Nebraska. Great player at Nebraska there, so of course they went with that guy. And Philadelphia gets former Syracuse Orangeman Donovan McNabb, number 2, and the rest is history. Couch flames out. McNabb has a great career. But a guy that should have won number 1 overall in 1999. Anyway, yeah, let's get to it. Let's give you guys a little brief overview of the draft. We've had 90 drafts since the NFL began. Officially, the NFL began in 1936. They've had 90 drafts since then. In 1936, the Philadelphia Eagles selected Jay Berwanger out of the University of Chicago, number 1 overall. That was the first ever player to be drafted to the International Football League. Of course, that was a smaller version of what we now know as the modern NFL. And like I said, we've had 90 drafts since 1936. The AFL, NFL had their merger in June of 1967. They reached that agreement and decided to merge and to form one league, the AFL and the NFL, which became known as what we now know, the NFL. They had what we call the Common Era Draft from 1967 to 1969. There was 3 years there where these two leagues were just trying to build as one league. And when we get 1970 is the beginning of what we know as the modern day NFL draft. And so just a little brief history of the NFL draft for those of you who didn't know. And so I want to give you guys, before I get into my top 5, I want to give you guys 10 guys that I considered honorable mentions for my top 5 guys that I felt had an impact on the game of football and had an impact on the sport, not only on the field but off the field, and guys that other people might consider putting into their top 5. I know Schrager's top 5 was has a few of these guys that are on my honorable mention list that I don't have in my top 5, and he has in his. And I'll give you his top 5 in just a second here. I'm going to give you my 10 honorable mentions, and then I'll go into his top 5. But anyway, no real particular order with these guys. But I had Keyshawn Johnson, a wide receiver from University of Southern California, who went number 1 overall in 1996. That was the first wide receiver selected in what we know as a historically deep wide receiver draft class in 1996. Keyshawn Johnson, number 1 overall, and had a great career. Very well impacted the game of football. NFL analysis now, and just a great guy. And to go number 1 overall in a class with that many wide receivers as a wide receiver, that says something about not only how deep that wide receiver class was, but just something about Keyshawn Johnson himself. And but this guy's probably more well known for his off the field antics than for his on the field stuff. But O.J. Simpson, if the glove fits, everybody says, oh, he killed Anna Nicole, but O.J. Simpson had a pretty good career in the NFL before all this legal troubles go on, before you put, Las Vegas or California Highway Patrol on that long chase and down the interstate. But O.J. Simpson was drafted number 1 overall out of the University of Southern California in 1969 and had a pretty good career. Not a bad career. He was a pretty good guy. He was a football player, and he was definitely very talented. Impact on the game, but like I said, his legal trouble is probably what keeps him out of the top 5 for me, because he wasn't that great of an NFL player to make up for that. But still, a guy that had an impact on the game. Earl Campbell, another running back out of the University of Texas, was drafted number 1 overall in 1978. Great career. He's one of those guys that goes down as one of the all-time greats. He went over number 1 overall. This is what a guy, when you talk about the best running backs in the NFL, Earl Campbell's name comes up more times than not with the Houston Oilers. And so the next guy on my list, he's got some good company that he's in, and that's Eli Manning. As a guy I'm very big on. I love Eli Manning. A lot of people don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I think he's a future NFL Hall of Famer, possibly a first ballot. I don't know if he's going to be an unanimous, but he'll definitely be highly voted in first ballot Hall of Famer, if in my opinion. And but Eli Manning, the only quarterback to beat Tom Brady, the GOAT, twice in a Super Bowl. So that says something about him, and you just got to take that into account as well. Next guy, Orlando Pace, the tackle from Ohio State, was taken number 1 overall in 1997. Had a great career as a tackle, longevity there. So very big impact for him. I thought that was a really worthwhile mention as well. And but not exactly a transcendent talent, but a guy that changed the game at the tackle position. The next guy on my list is a guy out of the University of Oklahoma, Leroy Selmon. I grew up in the same county, same area that this guy's from. You follow Oklahoma. I was from across the lake in Dakota, Oklahoma. But Leroy Selmon, defensive end, University of Oklahoma, drafted number 1 overall in 1976 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Had a pretty good career. He's an NFL Hall of Famer, but not exactly a blow you out of the water type guy. Next on the list here, Joe Namath. Broadway Joe, from the a quarterback from the University of Alabama, went number 1 overall to the New York Jets in 1965, won a Super Bowl with them. That guy, his impact goes beyond the game of football, not just on the field, but his Broadway Joe persona off the field. He was one of the first guys to really use the media for his own advantage, to show what he can do, and helped revolutionize the game of football. But the next guy, this is a guy that was actually on Peter's top 5, but Terry Bradshaw, from the quarterback from La Tech. I gotta tell you, he went number 1 overall in 1970. To go number 1 overall in 1970 out of the University of Louisiana Tech University, that's impressive. And he had a great career. He's the all-70s, all-decade team. He made it, winning, I think it was 4 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe it was 5. I can't remember. But a guy that won a lot of Super Bowls with the Steelers. But the reality is, if you ask me, that steel curtain defensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers was a big impact to help him win those Super Bowls. So I don't think you can put that all on Terry as a legend and everything. But he's a great quarterback, great impact on the game of football. He works on NFL as an NFL analysis now. He has a great impact continuing on the game of football. And of course, he's got a couple sons that are, he doesn't have any sons in playing in the league, but he's had an impact, but just not enough of an impact to me to put him in the top 5. But this is another guy that was in the top 5 as well, Troy Aikman, quarterback from UCLA by way of the University of Oklahoma, drafted in 1989. Guy went on to win a couple Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys. But the thing for me that kind of keeps me from putting him in the top 5 all time and the 1 overall picks is the fact that he had the talent, all that talent he had around him in Dallas with the Cowboys. I mean, Jimmy Johnson is his head coach, and of course Barry Switzer later as his head coach. He had 2 great head coaches to play for, playing with Emmitt Smith and what's his name, Michael Irvin at wide receiver. And just he had transcendent talent around him, makes it just a little bit easier. So I mean, Troy, great guy, but not exactly somebody I would put in my top 5 all time. And the next guy, this guy was probably had more of an impact in college than in the NFL. He's got an award named after him, but it's Chuck Bednarik, a linebacker from Penn, who was drafted number 1 overall by the Philadelphia Eagles in 1949, and had a pretty good career as a linebacker and a center back in the day of two-way players, but not exactly somebody that would make the top 5 all time, but definitely a guy that's had an impact on the game of football. But anyway, I want to give you Peter's top 5 real quick. Just going to give you an idea of what his top 5 looks like versus what mine looks like. At number 5, he had Bruce Smith from Virginia Tech. At number 4, he had Troy Aikman from UCLA. At number 3, he had Terry Bradshaw from La Tech. At number 2, he had Peyton Manning from Tennessee. And at number 1, he had John Elway. And so that's his top 5. I'm going to give you mine, and I'll tell you why I had mine different, why I left guys out, why I put guys in. But at number 5, for me, this is a guy that a lot of people are going to say, whoa, what are you thinking, dude? But at number 5, from Virginia Tech, quarterback Michael Vick, drafted number 1 overall in 2001. And before you get into the whole, oh, he fought dogs, he was a bad person kind of thing, you got to look at Michael Vick and his impact on the game of football. Because without Michael Vick, you don't have the modern day football that we have right now. This guy transcended the game, changed the game, and in terms of what we're looking at with the mobile quarterback, the black quarterback. Because without him, there's no Kyler Murray, there's no Lamar Jackson, there's no Jameis Winston getting to play quarterback in the NFL, Cam Newton. These guys have their current NFL success in some small way to Michael Vick and what he did before them, blazing trails as the number 1 overall pick. And a lot of people have called him like the Allen Iverson of the sport. And that's really what he is just a great guy that transcended the game. And who can we forget? Michael Vick, Madden 2004, the most unstoppable player in the entire video game. But so that's my number 5, Michael Vick of the Atlanta Falcons and later the Philadelphia Eagles at number 5. At number 4, John Elway. Now, Peter had John Elway at number 1. What he cited was the idea that John was also a transcendent, not only as a football player, because he won a couple Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos, but also because he won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos, not as a quarterback, but as an executive, as an NFL executive. And for me, John should not have gone number 1 overall in 1983. The reality is that was a very deep first-round draft class for quarterbacks. There were plenty of guys that the Baltimore Colts could have drafted. And for those of you who don't realize, Baltimore Colts had the number 1 overall pick in 1983, not the Denver Broncos. Denver had like the 4th pick that year. And Baltimore, they had a coach that John Elway didn't want to play for, who was a disciplinarian at Arizona State. So John Elway didn't want to play for him. And what the Colts, to spite John Elway, I guess, to kind of call his bluff on when he go play for the New York Yankees, who had drafted him in the Major League Draft, MLB Draft and everything, they went ahead and drafted him number 1 overall. But the reality is, the Baltimore Colts should have done a better job. There were plenty of other quarterbacks that were taken in that draft. They should have gone and drafted Dan Marino from Pittsburgh. That's what they should have done. Just drafted Dan Marino from Pittsburgh, or one of the other guys that were like 5 or 6 quarterbacks taken between John Elway and Dan Marino in that first round in 1983. They should not have drafted John Elway, even though he was the best quarterback available in that draft. Absolutely, you got a number 1 overall pick, you can go after the guy you want. But the reality is, if he's not going to play for you, go get a guy that's willing to say, yes, sir, I'll play for you. And that's what they should have done. They should not have drafted John Elway, number 1. But John Elway, of course, goes on. They draft him. They get forced to trade him to Denver. He goes on to have a great NFL career, a great executive career. And as for the executive point, did he win a Super Bowl as an executive and make it to build 2 Super Bowl teams for the Denver Broncos as an executive, or did Peyton Manning lead him to 2 Super Bowls and a Super Bowl win as an executive? Because that's what you got to ask right there. So John Elway, definitely in the top 5, number 1 overall picks all time, not number 1. Next guy on this list, the Sackmaster, Bruce Smith. He was sitting there at 5th on Peter's list. I got him at 3. Why? Because you got to put a guy that had more sacks than anybody in the NFL ever, since they started recording sacks, that is. 200 career NFL sacks. Defense wins championships, and that's the reason that saying is what it is. And Bruce Smith was a guy that had a really big impact on the game of football. Great career. So he's 3rd on my list. The 2nd on my list, this is a guy that is transcending not only the game of football, but video games and Major League Baseball and just social media in general at this day, is Bo Jackson, a running back from the University of Auburn, who was taken number 1 overall in 1986. And Bo is the kind of guy, when you say Bo knows, everybody knows who you're talking about. You're talking about Bo Jackson. This is a guy that not only played football, but was drafted to play Major League Baseball as well. So he played Major League Baseball. He played it well. 161 career home runs. Played NFL football. Had a really great career. Tecmo Super Bowl. Come on. Bo Jackson was unstoppable in Tecmo Super Bowl. You can't forget that. So this is a guy that transcends everything. When you say Bo knows, you know who he is. He transcends everything. He transcends all time, all sports, football, baseball. It's just video games. His impact is huge as a former Heisman Trophy winner and as a running back in the NFL. And of course, my number one guy is a guy I think a lot of people can have a hard time arguing with, Peyton Manning. Quarterback at the University of Tennessee, taken number 1 overall in 1998. Peyton Manning, to me, still transcends football. There's a reason Peyton Manning, a guy who was a 5-time NFL MVP, holds numerous NFL records as number 1 or number 2 in just about every passing statistical category for quarterbacks in the NFL. Had a pretty good career at Tennessee, not exactly a great one, but a pretty good career at Tennessee. Won a national championship down there. But anyway, or did he? I'm not sure. I'll have to check on that. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure he won a national championship at Tennessee in 1998 or 97. But anyway, great career. And there's a reason Peyton Manning was chosen to be the guy that hosted the documentary where the NFL did the history of football. Because that's the kind of guy, when you think football, you think Peyton Manning and his long forehead that everybody likes to joke about. The guy's got so much brain power. He's so smart. His workout routine. The guy knew how to study film, knew how to manipulate a defense to show them the same motion, whether he was handing the ball off to running back or doing the play action fake or throwing the ball down the field. He's won a Super Bowl with the Colts. He won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. The guys won Super Bowls with 2 teams. He went to 2 Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos after everybody wrote him off and said he was done. He was never going to play football again because of the neck injury that he had. But he went on to leave the Colts, go to the Denver Broncos, play in 2 Super Bowls, get blown out and won pretty ugly against the Seattle Seahawks, but come out and win another one. So beating Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. So not a bad guy, pretty good, pretty great career. And to me, you know, his commercials, his hosting documentaries, the fact that he goes back and he teaches other quarterbacks that are coming through the draft and stuff like that about what it takes to play in the NFL. This is a guy that arguably is the best number 1 overall pick. Not the best player in NFL history, but just the best number 1 overall draft pick that we've seen come out of the NFL draft. And so we'll see if Joe Burrow can join that list tomorrow night. He'll likely be the number 1 pick by the Cincinnati Bengals. There's been a lot of talk about teams moving up, trading up and down in the draft. I think Miami's trying to trade up. The Giants are trying to trade up or down. I forget. But no talking to number 1 spot. There's no moving on that pick. It's going to be Cincinnati picking number 1 tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 Eastern. And so odds are, right now, it looks like it's going to be Joe Burrow with the number 1 overall pick. We'll see if he can join this list, if he can crack it. Top 5, number 1 overall picks. Love to hear your thoughts. Leave your top 5 below in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think is the top 5 number 1 overall picks in NFL draft history. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. Have a good day. Stay safe.